Now, stories of atrocities against the Rohingya are being laid out in The Hague as hearings begin into genocide allegations against Myanmar. Nobel laureate Aung San Suu Kyi is there defending Myanmar and its military against genocide charges, the very same military that imprisoned her for 15 years. Survivors spoke of gang rape, torture, mass killings and large-scale destruction of property. Myanmar denies the charges, saying it was targeting, quote, terrorists. Hala Grani has a story for you.
The soldiers killed the male members of my family. They shot them first and then slit their throats.
As lawyers share testimony from Rohingya witnesses, Myanmar's de facto leader, Aung San Suu Kyi, listens to stories alleging atrocities by soldiers. The Nobel Peace Prize laureate and former human rights icon is defending her country and its military against accusations of genocide.
Your order must.
On day one of hearings at the top court of the United Nations, lawyers ask the court to order special measures protecting Rohingya Muslims. Buddhist-majority Myanmar is charged with mass murder, rape, and destruction of minority Rohingya Muslim communities. And a brutal military operation one UN leader has described as likely tantamount to ethnic cleansing. It is the first case of its kind in decades, initiated by Gambia's justice minister, who heard from Rohingyas now living in a refugee camp after fleeing the violence in their home country.
I saw genocide written all over these stories. I have spent a decade and a half interacting with the victims of the 1994 Rwandan genocide. I could tell that these stories were very, very similar.
Gambia's submissions cite United Nations investigators,
the gravest crimes under international law,
who found actions of Myanmar's military to be genocide. Those investigators saying Aung San Suu Kyi's involvement was a, quote, open-ended question in a 2017 campaign that drove more than 700,000 Rohingyas from their home to neighboring Bangladesh, where they now watch this provisional trial unfold.
We left Myanmar because the army tortures our mothers and sisters. 3 military personnel raped me. They detained hundreds of our women and raped them in front of their children and husbands. We have been demanding justice for all of this.
Aung San Suu Kyi has long denied any ethnic violence against the Rohingya and describes her government's actions as a legitimate response to, quote, terrorism. She was once known for her resistance to the military junta, winning a Nobel Peace Prize in 1991 after 15 years spent under house arrest. But Suu Kyi has recently drawn ire from some human rights leaders who say she has gone from being a voice for the oppressed to siding with the oppressors. Hala Grani, CNN.
Now, Simon Adams is the executive director of the Global Center for the Responsibility to Protect. He's with us from New York. Simon, I appreciate you being with us this hour. You know, anyone looking at what's happening at, seeing Aung San Suu Kyi today in court, really, it's a real incredible fall from grace for her. She's expected to address the court tomorrow. How do you think she's going to defend Myanmar?
Oh, God. I mean, first of all, on the first point you made, it is an astounding fall from grace. But I'm reminded of something that she actually once said in the 1980s when she was under house arrest, when she said that, you know, fear of losing power corrupts those who wield it. And I think this moment kind of represents her final transition from Nobel Peace Prize winner to essentially genocide denialist. And I think there was a time, I mean, I never had a poster on my wall, but a lot of people around the world saw her as this great defender of democracy and as this kind of icon of human rights. And now she's the defender of the indefensible. So I don't know exactly how she'll put her case tomorrow, but I assume based on her previous statements that she'll contest the jurisdiction of the court and then, of course, deny that anything like genocide ever took place.
You have been working, Simon, with the Gambia for 18 months behind the scenes in trying to bring this case to the courts. Talk us through the evidence, because I believe in one of your tweets, if we can just bring it up, you say that the evidence is overwhelming and that Aung San Suu Kyi is prepared to defend the indefensible. Talk us through that evidence.
Yeah, I think the evidence is overwhelming. It's not just, you know, me saying that. I think we've had a UN fact-finding mission, which as recently as September this year talked about not only the fact that these atrocities happened between August and December of 2017, but actually stated in that final report that the government of Myanmar, the military of Myanmar, still had genocidal intent with regard to the Rohingya. There's been numerous reports, not only by multilateral bodies like the UN, but by human rights organizations like my own and many, many others. There's satellite evidence, which people like myself and many other people have seen. And of course, there's the thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands, 740,000 Rohingya who have been pushed across the border into Bangladesh and who have, of course, provided testimony of the horrible atrocities that they've endured.
From what I understand, the Gambia is asking the court to impose, I'm reading here, provisional measures to protect the Rohingya in Myanmar and elsewhere. And this will be legally binding, correct? But who oversees it? Who polices it? How do you enforce it?
I mean, that's a very good question, because provisional measures act as a kind of injunction against the perpetrator and say, you shouldn't do these things until we can settle down and look at the case. Now, technically, the UN Security Council, has overview over this. It could get involved. And I think one of the great tragedies here is more than 2 years after this genocide has taken place, the UN Security Council has done absolutely nothing to either name the crime or to hold the perpetrators accountable. So it's really an enormous credit to the Gambia to bring this case forward. And I just want to say in that regard, because this touches on your previous question as well, my organization and our partners at the Global Justice Center, we went to a number of governments, big, powerful governments around the world, including some who talk a lot about human rights. But it was the Gambia, the smallest country in Africa and a country which itself is going through this transition from military rule to democracy, which came to the conclusion itself that it needed to take this case forward.
I appreciate you speaking to us, Simon Adams. We'll keep on top of this story, a very important story for us here on CNN. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.